Hello, beautiful people of YouTube. Thanks for joining me for another video. I'm here again to share my thoughts on topics that I find worthy of discussion. And the topic for today is white privilege. This is something that I used to think when I first saw it going around, I thought honestly it was just people messing around. I thought it was a rumor. I didn't think that anybody actually believed that this was true, but I'm starting to think that now it's gone to levels where it's becoming an actual fact. Like I'm just waiting to find out that the Oxford Dictionary has added the word to the dictionary as an actual word. Like if you open the dictionary, you're gonna find white privilege, meaning da 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 da, all those other nonsense that people spew out. And so I'm just here to debunk that thought today because I personally don't believe that there is such a thing as white privilege. In fact, I don't think that there's such a thing as any color being privileged. Okay, like there's no privilege does not discriminate. It's not about race. It's not about color. It's not about gender. It is literally does not discriminate. So you can find very privileged white people and very disadvantaged and unprivileged white people. Just walk down the streets in Melbourne or Adelaide or any city that you may be in. You'll find homeless people, homeless white people. Okay, now is it because they missed the wand that was being passed around, the white privilege wand that all white people were being given by the Almighty or by God knows who's giving this wand, by the way? Who's giving people the privileges? I would love to know, wouldn't that be great if there was someone that just goes around saying, hey, the privilege for you, privilege for you, privilege for everyone. That would be lovely. So I don't think those homeless white people or disadvantaged white people, who, by the way, happen to be many, miss the baton of the privilege that their race is supposed to be having. I think privilege has to do with choices. So if you make the right choices in your life, okay, you will have privilege. You'll reap the fruits of your labor. So if it just so happens that there are more white people that are living more comfortable lives, then that means that maybe more white people have made the right choices in their lives. And instead of the rest of us, other groups, hating on them or being so upset that they're quote-unquote privileged, shouldn't we be trying to emulate the formula for success? We should be trying to copy them and find out what they did in their lives to change their circumstances and that got them to where they are now. So if it is in fact true that there are more white people that are that are living better lives or that are quote unquote privileged, then it's not because of some magic wand. It's because of hard work that was put in it. And I believe that success is something that can be replicated into any race. And I know Black people, I know within my own community, I know people that have made certain choices that got them to certain places, and people that have made certain choices that, they are also in certain places in their lives. So it's got nothing to do with color, okay? That's what I'm saying. So, success has nothing to do with your race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. It's all to do with your choices. So if other races could make better choices, then they would also experience the same success as white people. I personally come from a refugee background. I come from a war-torn country called South Sudan. And South Sudan experienced its fair share of trouble. And my parents, unfortunately, did not choose to be born there. They happened to be born in a war-torn country. And even then, they happened to be, they worked their way up in society and became what part of the elite. They were one of the elite in that society, even though to someone else, they would say, oh my gosh, a war-torn country, what good can come? Of course, there was only so much good happening. There was only so many opportunities going around, but they took advantage of every little opportunity that they had and made the most of the circumstances that, the cards that they were given to make a better life for themselves. So they ended up becoming one of the elites in that society. Now, was it their fault that they were born in that country? Or was it their fault that the country went to war and the circumstances that they face as a result of those circumstances? No. But they made the most of that situation, and that's what I'm saying. They made certain choices that their maybe some relatives or some of their countrymen did not make, and that was the difference between them and others. And there are, of course, others like them that made similar choices or even better choices. Okay, and so I as a child of my parents, suffered from the consequences of obviously them being born in South Sudan, and ended up finding myself being orphaned at a very young age. I lost my mom when I was 12 years old, and only a year later I found out from my little brother. My little brother was probably 11 at the time, going to 12 when my father died. And I found out that we were coming to Australia. And I said, why do we need to go to Australia when we're waiting for Dad? Because my dad had gone to the front lines. He was a general in the army, in the the local, well, I guess the only at the time, it was the only political party / army. And so he had gone back to South Sudan and left us in Kenya, in Nairobi, and said that he would come back, but he never came back. And I didn't know that he had gone and passed away until my little brother said to me, what are you talking about? You're so stupid. Didn't you know Dad died? Didn't you know he passed away? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, an uncle told me. He said your dad was killed, or your dad died, or something. Honestly, it was just crazy. I was so taken aback. I was too shocked to cry. And I guess that's a bit disturbing. This, maybe you didn't need to hear that. That's a bit personal, but I'm just here to say, what I'm trying to say is that, I grew up as an orphan. Losing parents at such an early age, such a tender young age, is it's not easy. It's a difficult situation. I don't consider myself an orphan now, because obviously I can fend for myself. I don't need my parents for anything. It would be nice to have parents to just visit and, to love, some people to love you and people to love back. But I don't need my parents in the way that I needed them when I was younger. And so that's why I used to want to, there are people that try to put me in this box of victimhood. They try to make me feel like I was less than because I was an orphan. And they try to dictate what my life should be and how it should turn out. And they try to place this victim card on me, which I totally refuse, because I never felt like I was a victim. There are many people, even within that society, that a lot of people would consider to be a very, disadvantaged society, being a third world country in itself, allegedly third world country, and then being a war-torn country, and then being orphaned really young, okay? And, that's something that a lot of people would find to be a disadvantage. And maybe it was, but like I say, there's always someone that is going through something worse than you. Someone is always going through a tougher time. And how my view of the world changed as a result of what I went through because of losing my parents. My worldview just changed totally. Being in Nairobi at that time, I was so blessed that when my parents died, I had an excellent uncle and a lovely aunt who took us in. They took my brothers and I in, and put a roof over our head, and they paid our school fees and clothed us, and they loved us. They didn't legally adopt us, but they took care of us until we were able to leave Kenya to come to Australia. And I would go on the streets of Nairobi and see street children. Thousands and thousands of street children who are called chokoras. Chokora is a Swahili word for a homeless kid. Basically, they were given that name because they go through dumpsters and rubbish bins to find leftover foods that they can try to eat, because they didn't have anything else to eat. They didn't have, obviously, a home to go to. They didn't have parents. The majority of those kids were basically orphaned. And I would say 90% of those street children were orphaned, and the rest just happen to be runaway children who come from abusive home households. Excuse me. So I would look at them and thank God for my situation. I was like, oh my gosh! I used to say to myself, God is so good, because imagine if I did not have my uncle or aunt, if we didn't have relatives like the ones we had, what would have been of us? We would have been like those children. We would have been on the streets in dumpsters looking for food. Okay, that would have been us. And it's a thought that used to make me want to cry, because I felt so bad for those children, but at the same time I felt so grateful. It made me so grateful of my situation. And that's the point that I'm trying to say. Like, you can look at somebody and think that, you know, they have the best of everything, but there's always someone that has even better. And at the same time, you look at someone who you think is so disadvantaged, but there's someone who is even more disadvantaged than that person. Okay, so life, that's just how life is. It's not about color. It does not discriminate. Privilege and certain circumstances don't discriminate. Now, had my parents made different choices, maybe they wouldn't have died. Maybe they wouldn't have died the way they died, I suppose. Or it was so young. They were so young. They died very early, and at the same time, it's because of the choices they made that we were able to enjoy the peace or the freedoms that we have in South Sudan, because they fought for the independence of the country. So I'm very proud of them. And so it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I don't feel like a victim. If I, as an orphan from a refugee war-torn country, don't feel like a victim, I don't feel like white people are the cause of whatever situation that I had to go through as a kid, or my life circumstances, the thing that I had to endure. It's not white people's fault. They did not put me in those circumstances. They didn't cause war in South Sudan. They didn't cause, you know. Okay, so if white people are privileged, why should we be mad at them? That's the question. Like, what do you want them to do? What should they do about their privilege? Let's say if they were born privileged, let's say God created white people with more privilege than the other races, than all other races. Let's say this is something that was done by the Creator. So what does the rest of society want them to do? What do you want? Do you want them to give up their privilege? Would you give up your privilege if you were born privileged? Is that how they would even the playing field? Like, is that what would make people feel better? Because I don't understand, what exactly do you want white privilege to, how do you want things to change? Like, so you complain that there is such a thing as white privilege. Is that supposed to excuse your failure in life because your life is the way it is? Is that what you're claiming? Your life is the way it is because of white people, because white people are privileged, so you're being held back by white privilege? Or are you saying that white people should give some of their privilege to you, so that they can elevate you? You see, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're one of those people that believes that there's such a thing as white privilege, please comment down below and tell us, what do you want white people to do with their privilege? Do you want them to give up their privilege? Or do you want them to share it with you, if it's possible to share it? Or do you just use it as an excuse to stay behind, to make excuses for why you're behind in your life and why you're not as successful as maybe what you would like to be? Maybe you want to be more successful, and you can't think of any other reason than to blame white people. Think about maybe if you made better choices, and you still can change your life. You still have a chance to change your life. If you can just make better decisions, you can also enjoy the success that white people have. So please, it doesn't, whether or not white people are privileged, does not even matter as far as I'm concerned. Even though I don't believe that they are privileged, it does not matter, because even if they are privileged, so what? What do you want? Who are we to complain? So if they're born privileged, given by the Creator, by God, what are we going to do about it? Let's wait till Judgment Day and go complain to God and ask, why did you create white people with more? Why did you give them more opportunities? Why did you give them more privilege than the rest of us? Because who's going to solve the situation for us here on earth if that's the case, right? So if they're born the way they are and created the way they are by God, to be more privileged, then that's something that it's a question we have to ask God, not white people. It's not their fault. And second to that, they're not entitled to give us their part of their privilege. They're not entitled to sharing or obligated to sharing their privilege. That's ridiculous. You can't ask somebody to give you something that, they were born, that's crazy. That is absolutely ridiculous. But this video is now getting longer than I expected it to. Please bear with me. I'm just gonna I'll wrap it up real quick by saying make better choices, and don't blame white people, because there are Asians that are very successful, more successful than white people. And there are black people that are successful, more successful than white people. And there are white people that are suffering, and suffering more than other races as well. So this is a clear case of success and failure has to do with choices and nothing to do with color, race, gender, or anything else. So if you want to be like white people, be as successful as them, then please make better choices, and maybe even try to make choices the way they do them. You know, like copy them. Go find out. Go to the wealthier neighborhoods in your I guess locality. You know, go and find out. Go door knocking. Literally, go door knocking if you have to, or go on Google and find out what those people in those communities had to do to make the kind of, you know, to become as successful as they are, and they're living the comfortable lives that they're living. Because you might learn something from them. Instead of judging or hating them, just try to learn from them, befriend them, you know, be smart. Okay, so I'm here to say, as a former refugee, orphaned black girl who is supposed to be at the bottom of the oppression Olympics, according to, I guess, you people, I don't believe that there's such a thing as white privilege. There is just privilege, and my life is totally different to what it could have been because of choices that I've made. I didn't choose to be born in the family I was born into. I didn't choose to be born in the country I was born into. But along the way, I made choices that steered me towards the direction of where I want my life to go. And now I don't consider myself as a refugee anymore, because I'm now Australian. Thank God for that. I'm no longer an orphan because I'm a grown woman. I don't need my parents for anything. And I'm a woman, obviously, but I don't consider that a disadvantage like you guys would want me to believe. And being a black person, I think, is a blessing. Like, I get to go outside without having to worry about you know, burning. Or do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an illness to be black. Like, it's not a disadvantage. It's not you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a blessing. Like, embrace your color, embrace who you are. You know, that's why life is beautiful. The world is beautiful because of these different colors that we share. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with you know, acknowledging that, you know, we're all privileged in our own ways, and we're all disadvantaged in our own ways. Even the richest of the rich, I'm pretty sure Prince Harry and Prince William would have a thing or two to complain about. But you know, I'm guessing that everyone will be up in arms if they were to ever complain about anything, because allegedly they're so privileged for being born in the royal family or whatever. But everybody goes through things, even, I'm pretty sure, even royalty. So anyway, I'll just cut the video short for now. If you have anything to add to this discussion, please don't forget to comment down below. And if you want to hear more discussions, I'll be uploading twice a week. Or sometimes more, at least twice a week. So please don't forget to subscribe, like, or share my videos if you enjoyed them. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.